Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aisha. Hopefully you're not new here. If you're new here, thank you for joining us on this channel. We talk about books and I do vlogs. When I was trying to film this video, I was looking for a place to get enough light and I couldn't find one. So excuse me if the sun is, let's just work with what we have now. So today's video is going to be a very short review of one of the best books that I've read this year. And the book is titled What White People Can Do Next, From Allyship to Coalition by Emma Dabiri. A while back in October, I read Emma Dabiri's first book, which is called Don't Touch My Hair. And I have a review of that book and I will link it in this video. And it is not far-fetched that I enjoyed this book as well, because the same affinity for research that Emma Dabiri showed in the first book was also reflected in this one. And the title of this book is quite misleading because anyone would think that this book is just going to be Emma ranting out a list of things that white people should do next if they want to, maintain allyship or build allyship in the fight against racism, especially anti-black racism. At the beginning of the book, Emma highlighted how when she put out a tweet on Twitter saying, oh, this is the next book that I have coming out, people were attacking her, saying that, yeah, this title is very problematic, you're basically just like attacking white people and, making it seem like racism is their fault, like they tripping white people. Very similar to the Bookstagram drama of Babu that is going around now, if you know the gist. If you know the gist. And Emma stated that she replied saying that's kind of like the point of what she's trying to do in this book. The chapters in this book, the things that Emma listed, for white people to do next in combating white supremacy and racism includes stop the denial, interrogate whiteness, abandon the guilt, redistribute resources, realize this shit is killing you too. So one of the main things I liked about this book is that it asks a very pregnant questions, which I have not asked myself ever. And that question is, what were white people before they became white people? Basing off of research and building on this question, she kind of goes into like the history of how white people became white people. I have read like a couple of like articles from like the past saying that at the beginning of like the whole like concept of race, not Africans were considered white people, and apparently even in some studies in Oxford today, not Africans are grouped under white people. And it kind of begs the point, what were white people, like people that we consider white today, what were they before they became white people? If you ask the same question for black people, for example, what were black people before they became black people, I think many of us know what we were before we became black people. Even African Americans that their ancestors were enslaved know that, oh yeah, their ancestors were stolen from this continent and they had like this old tribe and this old like history and this culture, and they were taken into this place and they built a culture off of what they were given, even though it was rubbish. And then even like Africans that are alive now, many of us know our roots. We have, in my culture, in Yoruba culture, we have this thing we call Oriki. So like your ancestral, like the names of your ancestors, a lot of things about your roots, so you know who you were before the world came to term you as black. The same does not necessarily apply to white people, so like the people we call today white. And in doing so, Emma interrogates the very concept of whiteness. She uses the history of like slavery in America in talking about like how enslaved Africans would like unionize with like enslaved Irish people in America at the time. And when the capitalists, like the people that were enslaving these people, saw that the enslaved Africans along with the enslaved Irish people were unionizing to form revolutions, and it was affecting their sales, like the money that they were getting from enslaving these people, they kind of then reoriented the whole idea of like whiteness. So they ascribed whiteness to like enslaved Irish people, in that way breaking the unionization, because that was the power. And in pointing to that concept, Emma highlights how racism is really just a tool to prop up capitalism, to ensure that capitalism remains a thing, to ensure that the people at the helm of capitalism keep getting their money. And we see that in play even to today, because we have all these people of color fights, people in diaspora, like black people in diaspora, having all this weird and frankly distracting conversations with Africans on the continent, and even the conversations we have amongst ourselves, like, oh, brown people are racist towards black people, and people of color are racist. All of these disagreements, the very concept of race is built on separating the people, and then because they are focused on that separation, they don't realize that all of them are actually suffering the same thing. She also does this thing in the book where she uses inverted commas to write white and black every time she refers to these races. And she stated that in doing that, she's taking away the agency, the humanhood that the old concept of race as ascribed to these races. She kind of draws on the concept that Bell Hooks used when she decided to write her names in all lower cases. One thing that I was able to get from that particular point is that we are trying to dismantle the system, but we are using, the old concept of how we see ourselves today, the old idea of how we identify racially is built off of that system. So you really cannot use the master's tool to destroy the master's house. From reading Don't Touch My Hair, I kind of realized that Emma generally has a little bit of problem with how racial discourses happen online, and this is also reflected in this book, because in the chapter where she talks about abandoning guilt and examining whiteness, she kind of focuses on how we have conversations between black people and white people, the way that we talk about race and racism. She interrogates that whole concept. I don't know how to explain how this book blew my mind, but the fact that she brings in so many arguments that I have not thought about, or I've not seen many people that have racial discourses online talking about, it kind of endeared this book to me. I really liked this book. The chapter that I really enjoyed the most is the last chapter, which is realize that this shit hurts you as well. And in that chapter, Emma also draws on the history of intersectionality. So I don't know if intersectionality is the right word, but basically just how different struggles historically would unionize to fight the same thing. So for example, the Black Panthers, they had white people that created their own party. Apparently there's something called White Panthers. So these were people that would support the cause of the Black Panthers, the cause of the civil rights movement, because they know that when black people get their own rights, they would also get their rights, because there would be less police brutality, there would be more jobs for people, there would be less incarceration. And Emma is saying that we need to go back to that history and realize that we have more power when we work together. And I think this is something that even I see in play now in the UK today. I have all these white British people that vote for people in the Tory party, despite knowing that these people keep bringing policies that are affecting you, reducing your economic power, they're threatening to dismantle systems that work for you today. They still vote for them because it's the majority white people party. And I'm this is it in play. This party, they're bringing policies that are affecting your very life, your health, your money, your wealth. You cannot even think of wealth. You don't have eating in your home. Everything is difficult. Everything is so expensive, and you keep voting for these people. You keep bringing these people into power because I am white, and so far we don't have a party that brings policies that bring in the immigrants or the non-white people. So Emma is saying that it's frankly naive for us to expect that white people will just support the movement of emancipation of people of color just out of the goodness of their hearts. Because let's say the truth, people are more inclined to support a movement that they know would also cater to their own interests than they are to just support a movement because they are good people. Nobody likes to be thought of as somebody that is bad or selfish, but the truth of the matter is that people are more inclined to support a movement when they know that it would support their own interests. So in being allies to movements such as, you know, the anti-racism movements, the feminist movements, the anti-incarceration movements, you know, even climate change movements, you are protecting your own interests by extension, because you are supporting these other people, and then there will be no policies in place that can eventually affect you. So I think that particular point should be at the helm of conversations about allyship. People should realize that you're not just being an ally because you are trying to be a good person and support the movement of other people. You are being an ally because at the end of the day, it also serves your own interests, because none of us is free until all of us are free. That particular phrase did not just come out of thin air, and it does not apply to just Black people or people of color or Africans or, you know, people in the global south. It applies to everybody. We realize that being allies to all of this movement inherently protects our own interest. It is easier to be allies to those movements because you're not just relying on the goodness of your art to become allies to those movements. You're relying on the goodness of your art, fair enough, and your own selfish interest, because human beings are inherently selfish. I think you should pick it up. It's a very short book. It is packed with a lot of research, reflection, personal observation, asks you questions. You don't have to agree with every point that is made in the book, but the points that are made in the book kind of challenges your thought process. It forces you to ask questions, and I think a book that can do that in very short pages is a brilliant book. I gave this book 5 stars. This book dismantles everything that I thought I knew about the whole concept of race, and I've been re-examining the way that I approach like conversations about race and racism and allyship. Anybody should read this book because it teaches you how to really be an ally without being a performative ally. Yeah, thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.